Hello and welcome to my project of Titanic. Who is to blame for her sinking? I've studied this ship since I was 4 years old with the release of the movie in '97. So for the past 18 years, I've looked at her history, I've looked at her passengers, I've looked at her sinking, I've looked at everything. And to blame someone for the sinking is rather difficult and harsh. But to blame someone and look at our suspects, we should look at her history first. In 1909, she is constructed in Belfast, Ireland, and by 1911 she's partially completed and sent to Southampton, where she will be fully completed to weigh a total of 46,000 tons in steel alone. On April 10th, 1912, she will leave Southampton on her maiden voyage, where she will have her first omen, actually. She has enough suction from her propellers to pull a smaller ship called the New Yorker off the harbor and almost collide with her, scaring all her passengers. We have our first class cabins. Amongst them is John Jacob Astor, who perishes, and his 19-year-old wife, Madeline, who survives. We have the unsinkable Molly Brown that everybody knows, Isidore and Ida Strauss, owners of Macy's department store in New York, and John B. Thayer Jr., who actually wrote a book days after the sinking of Titanic in his own experience. Now, on April 14th, 1912, the unfortunate night, Titanic has what could have gone wrong went wrong. The crow's nest has no binoculars to spot icebergs. There is a false horizon, which is an invisibility of the real horizon to the stars. We have clear, calm waters, so no breaking at icebergs, and we have no moon. Titanic takes a total of 2 hours and 30 minutes to fully sink, and she then leaves 1,200 people in the water to perish. The passengers and survivors of the lifeboats describe that night as one of the most horrific nights of their lives, and the sound is a deafening football field in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That sound alone will haunt these people for the rest of their lives. So who is to blame for the sinking of Titanic? We have our three suspects here. Thomas Andrews, who is the builder of Titanic, J. Bruce Ismay with his fancy mustache, the owner of Titanic, and Captain E.J. Smith, the sailor of Titanic. Bruce Ismay, we said, is the owner, the White Star Line owner. He has a major impact on this ship because he wants to make headlines. He wants Titanic to be this glorious name. He wants her to be #1 ship in the world. He wants the unsinkable. Thomas Andrews, the builder of the ship, he is only on this ship to inspect her from England to New York. He wants to see how well she does in the cold waters. He wants to see what goes wrong during the voyage. He wants to see what needs to be repaired by the time they get to New York and how to fix it. Captain E.J. Smith, we know why he's there. He's there to get the ship from point A to point B. We all know it doesn't get to point B. She hits an iceberg and sinks. At the collision, he's actually asleep and isn't in charge. He puts his first officer, Lightoller, in charge, and he's the one who actually instructed the ship to be turned hard to starboard. Now, we have a tally system, and our first points go to E.J. Smith and J. Bruce Ismay because the telegraph was given of the actual warning, the iceberg that actually hit him was given to Ismay, and he didn't directly give it to the captain. He went around and showed everybody, making himself look more important. And then the captain ignored the warning by putting it on the board. Next, we give a point to Andrews for constructing the bulkhead system. The bulkhead system was ingenious. There were 16 of them, but they didn't go all the way to the top of the ship. So the reason why she sank was a domino effect of water overflowing the bulkheads and going into the next compartment. 2 points are distributed, one each to Captain E.J. Smith and Ismay for conducting the ship to go faster. Ismay wanted to make headlines, so he demanded that the ship to be going faster, and the captain, unfortunately, goes ahead and orders the speed. Another point is given to Thomas Andrews and Bruce Ismay for expanding the capacity of the first-class cabins. The cabins then take away potential room for extra lifeboats, and that just gives a point to each. But Andrews does get a point deduction because he knows that a ship of this size needs more lifeboats, and the board decides not to go with his agreement. So they are given the standard amount, but Andrews gets a deduction for wanting more lifeboats to save people in case something bad were to happen. The captain gets another point for guiding the ship too far north for the season. If they went further south, they would have avoided the icebergs, but the travel would have taken longer. So Ismay decides his biggest point. He got off the ship. Captain Smith and Thomas Andrews both went down, and Ismay got off, and he ended up taking the blame from the public. The public just blamed him because he was the only survivor of the three, and he actually did have the most impact. So our totals, J. Bruce Ismay comes to a total of 4. Thomas Andrews comes to a total of 1 because of that point deduction. And the Captain Smith gets 3 for his non-thinking. But Ismay has to take the blame because he got off the ship. If he went down, he would have been just as equally to blame as the other two. And so 103 years later, we have Titanic at the bottom of the ocean, where she will rest like a graveyard for the entire world to see in pictures. So I thank you for your time, and have a good day.